Holy shit, this is grimy. When you're running dry on ideas, sometimes it helps when you have tools that help you think outside of the box and unlock new possibilities. Devious Machines Infiltrator is one of these effects. It's a multi-effect plugin which can create some unworldly results when you combine any one of its 31 different effects and filters, as well as using the different modulation capabilities, sequences, and envelopes. From creating filthy, menacing bass sounds to chopping up menacing amens, there's something for everyone with this tool. Comment down below and let me know what effect you guys go to when you're running dry on ideas. By the way, my name is Stranger, and if you want to improve your music production and sound design, especially with dance music and drum and bass, then this channel is for you. Alright, without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, to start, I'm just setting a pure square wave from Serum right into Infiltrator. It's just playing a 2-note pattern like this. So here's Infiltrator, and it's a multi-effects plugin which allows you a lot of different parameters and modulation capabilities. You have access to 10 different slots. You can insert an effect into any one of these 10 slots. There's also a step sequencer and 4 macro controls, which gives you a lot of power. So we can check out some of the presets here. I'll check out some of the bass transform presets. So having the macros is nice. It gives you a layer of customizability to the preset and lots you can do with this plugin. So let's build a sound from scratch in Infiltrator. So I've resetted the tool and I'm going to choose one of the shapes here. Let's try the sine wave and then click on here to access one of the 31 different filter effects. You have the usual filter effects here. You also have access to these interesting effects such as phaser, comb filter, ring modulator. There's an FM modulator. The grain pitch shifter is pretty nice too. The distortion sounds really good. So you have access to some really good effects here to modulate your sound. I'm going to just choose the Model 20 low pass filter. And I'm going to use this dial to control the amount of the envelope modulation. Let's just choose unipolar mode, so it starts from the bottom going to the top. We can increase the speed. Or we can create a little more interesting articulation. If you want to bring it down to 1 or 2 bars, then we could perhaps manually draw in something like this, right? And this might create some interesting results. Or let's try something like this. You can tune the filter to actual notes on the MIDI if you click on this MIDI note mode here. Let's increase the resonance and drive. So now the points snap onto actual notes. You can also choose different scales. It just makes for a more harmonic filtering. It makes it sound sweeter. And also, you may want to turn on the MIDI trigger mode, otherwise the LFO will run indefinitely. Alright, going back to the sine wave and using this as 1 bar, let's employ multiple slots to create a more interesting sequence. So I'm going to copy slot 1, paste it to slot number 2. This time I'm going to use, let's use 8th note here. And then number 3, we can paste it again. And this one, we can just have a 1 bar that goes long like that. Number 1, we can use one of these dotted 8th notes. And then going into the sequencer, each one of these slots will trigger corresponding effect. So the first row is for number 1, the low pass filter with the dotted 8th. Number 2 would trigger the low pass filter with the 8th note, and number 3 will trigger this one with the slower filter going for 1 bar. So first you had to set the length of each slot. So I want each to represent 1 bar. Then we just punch in. So we want this one to go for 1 bar. The next bar we want number 2 to play. Next bar we want number 1 again. And then the 4th bar I want to enable filter number 3. Now enable your sequence and play your track. So as you can see, it's a neat way to employ different LFO speeds to create interesting sequences. All right, so let's go back in the serum and use a more interesting sound. I have a sine wave for oscillator A. And then let's enable oscillator B. And I have this using the mellow but unstable wavetable. It's 2 octaves and 7 semitones up. All right, let's go back into Infiltrator. Sounding nice with these 3 filters. Let's take it one step further. Let's add some distortion. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this patch, number 1, paste it to number 4. So it has the same shape, but I'm going to use the distortion effect for this one. So click on distortion, enable that. Then number 2, I'll copy this effect, paste it to number 5. Again, I'll use distortion here. Then number 3, same thing. Paste it number 6, enable distortion. So now going back into the sequencer, I can now, so it's already copied it, so that's great. Now let's change the amount of the distortion. Now we also have a number of effects here on the master bus here, so we can add some additional drive, which is helpful. And you can specify whether to add the drive before or after the effects. So sometimes you want the drive to happen after the effects. It might give you a more richer tone. You also have a number of different distortion algorithms here. Tube sounds pretty good. Also going back to these slots here, remember we have the distortion set to 4, 5, and 6. We also have different algorithms that we can choose for these. So let me turn off the drive under master so we can go through each one of these. Because I believe tube sounds pretty warm. The drive filters also have a low pass filter. You may want to bring the low pass up so it doesn't filter it. We may want to increase the amount of the drive modulation. Okay, sounding good. Let's go back into the master. Let's turn on that additional drive. Okay, so now it's sounding pretty grimy. Let's see what the compressor does. The compressor has 4 different modes as well. Let's try multiband. So it's getting pretty loud. I just brought the gain down. Now What's awesome about this is there's a clean bass mode. So if you turn this on, it allows for a clean layer of the bass to punch through. Especially when you're adding lots of filtering and drive, you may lose that sub bass, that really round sub bass. So this preserves that. And that sounds a lot better. You can also preview the sine bass on its own. All right, let's add some more effects. Let's go to number 7 and let's experiment. Let's try some of these different filters. Let's try to format one. Now we have to go into the sequencer and just enable it. So I'm going to enable it on all 4 bars here. That's pretty cool. Let's go into sequence. I can also make a duplicate. So just duplicate the range. And I may want a different effect on the next 4 bars. So number 8. So let's go to number 8. Let's add some more. Let's try the decimator. See what that does. Actually, yeah, let me just disable 7 for now, just so we can hear 8 on its own. Wow, that's getting pretty nasty. You get that kind of 8-bit kind of bass sound. Okay, let's add number 9. I'll disable 8 for now again, just so we can hear 9 on its own. Let's try this frequency shifter. That's interesting. What else we got? FM. Sounds grimy. Let's try this reverb. That gets pretty gross. It makes the sound thicker. What I like about this is it doesn't add the muddiness of reverb that it usually brings when you add it on bass. Let's go back to their sequence and maybe let's switch between these two. Let's see what. That's pretty sick. Let's hear this over a beat. Now, sometimes with the LFO, you may want to assign a start in the middle of the waveform. So you can change the start point, say here. That may sound better with some of the modulations. We'll just see how that works. That's a lot better. All right, it sounded pretty sick so far. So some pretty crazy stuff that you can do with Devious Machines Infiltrator. All right, in this section, I'm going to show you the power of Infiltrator on breakbeats. So I have an AMEN layer here. Okay, so let's start playing with Infiltrator and see what we can do with this. So this time, I'm going to employ the sequence in a different way. This time, I want each of these placeholders to represent an eighth note. So I'm going to choose eighth note here because this is going to give me more control when I modulate different slices of the AMEN. And you'll see what I mean. First, let's turn on filter 1, and I'm going to use a filter. Low pass filter is good. Unison mode. And we can leave the envelopes alone. It's fine. Let's add number 2. I'm going to add some drive this time. Okay, so now let's go into the sequence, enable the sequence. So since each slot represents an eighth note, we want 8 slots to represent 1 bar. So what we're going to do is we're going to filter that AMEN kick. So that would be this note, I believe it would be. There we go. And our pattern is actually 2 bars. So I'm going to lengthen this and add another one here. And probably need one here. Okay, let's turn on the drive. So we have to enable the drive here as well. All right, and now let's pitch up the snare. So number 3, I'm going to use the pitch shifter. And again, unison or unipolar mode. Going back in the sequence, the snare would be this slot here. Can just go all 3. So you want to change the grain frequency if you want more of that time stretched kind of flangy sound. And this knob will either shift, if you shift this parameter counterclockwise from 12 o'clock, you'll be pitching down the AMEN, and going clockwise from 12 would be pitching it up. That sounds cool. The jitteriness just adds some randomness to the grains. Let's add some more. Number 4, I'm going to add a different pitch shifter, and maybe it'll be higher pitched. So I'm going to use number 4 here. Yeah. Maybe have another one on number 5 for some more interesting pitch shifting. I'll just copy number 4, paste it to number 5, and then just change the pitch a little. And number 5, perhaps. Maybe number 5 goes first, and then number 4, like that. So some pretty crazy sounds you get doing this. Let's double up the sequence. So duplicate. And let's maybe add either, let's see what we got. Either the phaser or maybe some reverb. Let's see what happens if we do reverb on number 6. And we'll add maybe like that. That's pretty cool. Let's add a number 7, maybe the phaser this time on number 7, and this 7 can go here. Okay, let's compress and drive this signal a bit. Add some compression. Bring the gain down. All right, we're getting some pretty sick choppage here. Right now, what we can do is we can add another breakbeat here. So I have this James Brown break here, the funky drummer. And then I can just copy the same Infiltrator effect onto the James Brown drum break. And we can split between the AMEN and the funky drummer. Wow, that creates some pretty nasty results. All right, let's hear this bad boy with some bass. Wow, instant choppage going out to all the drum funk heads out there. Big up. So as you can see, some grimy results you can get from Infiltrator. I'm really enjoying using this plugin for bass as well as amens, especially the amens and breaks. You can get some really gritty choppage drums and amens just from employing different effects here and applying it in the sequence section and just creating an interesting call and response with different effects. Awesome tool to get your drums to really sound gritty and grimy. So I encourage you guys to check it out. As you can see, Devious Machines Infiltrator is a super fun tool. Tools like these make music production a lot more enjoyable and helps unlock new ideas when you're running into a dead end. For tools like these, it's all about experimentation. Try combining different filters and effects, different modulation shapes and sequences. You never know what you're going to get. And if you're interested in trying out Devious Machines Infiltrator, you can check it out down in the link below. Anyways, that's pretty much it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Keep practicing, and I'll see you at the next video.